Okay, hi everyone. Joining us over video conference today is Simon Nelson. He's the CEO of FutureLearn. FutureLearn was the first UK-based provider of MOOCs, massive open online courses, and they offer full degrees now as well. Simon is a pioneer in taking media brands and content online. He has spent 14 years at the BBC, where he was instrumental in putting the radio online and creating the innovative radio player. He then moved to head all digital content activities for its television divisions, where he led development of the BBC iPlayer and other groundbreaking online products and services. So welcome back to FOL, Simon. It's nice to have you.
Thank you.
I'll let you take over now.
Thank you very much. It's a great pleasure to speak to you again. I apologize again that I've not been able to make it in person, but I hope to do so at some point in the future. Particularly as your conference shares so much with FutureLearn. It feels appropriate we should be there. Now I'm going to use some slides to illustrate the talk I'm going to give. Well done. I'd like to take credit for doing that myself, but I was helped by Hannah, so thank you, Hannah. Okay, so the FutureLearn is now a company that is 6 years old. It was launched by the British Open University at the end of 2012. So the British Open University is 50 years old this year and is a world-renowned veteran of distance and online learning. We launched FutureLearn as a British response to the arrival of MOOCs. MOOCs had swept through higher education through 2012, particularly coming from the United States and being driven by the new startups Coursera, edX, from whom I know you've had Anant Agarwal speaking today. And we were watching this and feeling that we also had something to offer in bringing British education brands initially into the MOOC space. Now, you will be familiar that over the last 5 years, there have been lots of doubts about MOOCs, lots of debates, lots of questions about whether they were merely hyped and not having the impact that they promised. Our own belief was always that some of the early promises were far too great about MOOCs, that people did overhype their impact in the short term, but that what they signified was a wider market shift in higher education with the arrival of digitization. And what we have found now, operating for 6 years in this market, is that still more and more universities want to deliver MOOCs or short courses using our platform and platforms like Coursera, edX. But the reasons they are using them are becoming more sophisticated. They might be using them for student recruitment. They might be using them for blended learning with their own students, so to introduce digital learning services. They might be using them to conduct research in new ways with mass international audiences. They might be using them to target new audiences like professionals, or to reach out into parts of the world where traditionally they have not been able to have impact. For example, to spread knowledge about disease or for humanitarian aid. And so MOOCs have had a major impact, but they've only been one part of a much wider impact, which is this arrival of digital in higher education. And we believe that this is a profound moment for education and an opportunity for us all to try to work together to transform access to education for people who previously could never have dreamt of being able to access the range and quality of learning resources that are now available. Because as you have no doubt been debating through the course of the day, the global shortage of higher education is only growing. The gap between the vast demand for high quality education and the few institutions that are able to satisfy that demand is only growing. We have done work with Ernst & Young Parthenon, who have estimated that if you predict forward to 2030, all the demand for tertiary education, for adult education in all its forms, then you're looking at nearly 14 million new students a year. And if one tried to satisfy that demand through the provision of traditional higher education physical establishments, you'd need 700 new universities every year, each serving 20 to 25,000 students. And that simply is not going to happen. So we have to find other solutions in order to try to satisfy that demand. And those solutions have to be digital, in our view. There's also huge skills gaps in just about every society in the world that we come across. Everyone is talking about the vast shortage of teachers, of nurses, of the gaps in digital skills development among all sectors of the population. And the macro trends of globalization of industries, automation of core jobs driven by the rise of artificial intelligence, digitization of industries leading to the development of entirely new skills and the requirement for a very different workforce than existed even 15 years ago, all of which is leading to huge job disruption in all societies in the world. And what we have experienced in our time as FutureLearn, as we have built and developed courses and delivered them around the world, is that demand for those courses has come from all sectors of society. So we have people and we ask people why they are taking our courses, and then we group them into what we describe as archetypes. And one of the largest is advancers, people looking to advance their careers, preparers, people preparing for a life change, people exploring further career options or study options, people looking to flourish in different areas of life as they enter new life stages, people trying to fix new problems, challenges, and opportunities, or try out new hobbies. All of these are audiences who traditionally universities have not necessarily thought about serving, with their requirement to deliver education to school leavers, the traditional undergraduate or postgraduate learner. But we believe that the next phase of higher education needs to encompass, more so than ever before, the concept of learning for life, both for professionals who will need these new skills to progress in the jobs they have or prepare for the job disruption that they will face throughout their careers, but also for those people beyond working age who now want to be able to continue to develop their brains, continue to stay mentally as well as physically active, and who still have so much to offer society if they're given the tools with which to contribute. So our belief is that this is the greatest opportunity that universities have ever had. And our focus in our early years has been on working with these universities to try to help them exploit those opportunities. And the key way, or the summary of how a university needs to exploit digital, is to think of themselves no longer as merely physical institutions serving a local population or people who visit their towns and their buildings, but actually to think of themselves as an educational establishment without walls, one that is able to reach into any corner of the globe and deliver high quality teaching, high quality learning experiences alongside those that the people in their classrooms are receiving. That doesn't mean that they shouldn't be doing the face-to-face teaching that so many people enjoy when they go to university. But if we restrict what universities do to merely what they do in those buildings, we have no chance of tackling the vast unmet demand for education. Now, because we're a digital company, this seems obvious to us, but we know that we're working with an industry, higher education, that, as with other industries who are going digital, sometimes struggle to accept the significant changes that are required for this new world. And as an example of this, I've drawn out some charts from the Times Higher Education magazine, who did a survey of international vice-chancellors. And they asked some very interesting questions about digital. They asked, to what extent do you agree that online degrees will be more popular than physical degrees by 2030? And as you can see, nearly over half of vice-chancellors surveyed disagreed or strongly disagreed with that statement. So their belief is that physically delivered degrees will, and probably should, be more popular in 12 years' time, 11 years now. They were also asked, to what extent do you agree that established and prestigious universities will be offering full degrees online by 2030? Now, thankfully, over half of people agree or strongly agree with this. However, over 20% didn't even think that their establishments would be delivering full degrees online by 2030. Now, for me, this is staggering. When you look at the scale of the opportunity, when you look at the scale of the demand, when you look at the requirement to bridge these gaps, that some of these leaders are still effectively saying, well, it isn't our job. Now, as I say, we believe at FutureLearn, digitization of higher education is the greatest opportunity that the sector has ever had to really have impact, not only locally, nationally, but internationally. And what we do is we work with those universities and those leaders who want to try to transform themselves to take advantage of those opportunities. And we find that a lot of the work we do is about trying to bridge the gap between the capabilities of those universities or other educational partners and what technology enables and what audiences are asking for. So here are a few of the ways that we go about that. Here is what our philosophy is in trying to help bridge the gap between supply and demand. So firstly, we have put great emphasis on creating a very high quality learning experience, one that works as well on a mobile phone as it does on a PC or a laptop, one where the learning experience is so simple that the content and the teaching is not distracted by things that get in the way. And we consistently are told by learners that they love and enjoy the simple, elegant design and the flexibility of being able to switch between computer and phone in order to do these kind of learning. And it's not only what the platform does, but it's also the way that we support and train our university partners to create content. So we have to make them understand that delivering a great online learning experience is very different to delivering a great classroom experience. You cannot just film the lecture that is taking place in a classroom, deliver it online, maybe with some tests, and assume that that will deliver a great learning experience. We help people understand, drawing upon our owners, the Open University, some of the philosophies of distance learning and online pedagogy. And we help them to craft their courses and their teaching in new ways to deliver this. And central to our approach has been adapting social learning pedagogies that have been adapted by the Open University and other partners, so that we try to bring to life one of the key strengths of online with one of the key strengths of higher education, a social experience. So we have effectively built FutureLearn as a social network for learning, where every step and every piece of learning is accompanied by a discussion. And people are encouraged to not only watch the video or read the content, but then to join in with other people in discussing what that means. And we have very vibrant conversations going on all across all of our courses from learners all over the world. And we believe this is an area in which we are world leading. And we and our partners believe that this is one of the key ways to really make online learning effective, to ensure that it is not a solitary experience, and to ensure that learners can support each other as well as learn from each other. We've also helped our partners understand how to break down full qualifications into more manageable segments that work for distance learning audiences. So I'm sure Anand spoke about the unbundled degree. And we have developed an architecture on FutureLearn that enables our partners to unbundle whole master's degrees down into graduate diplomas, graduate certificates, micro-credentials, and all the way to a 2-week short course. And we're developing further our micro-credential qualification, which can stack in these types of ways to deliver these more valuable qualifications. And that has enabled us, with our partners, Deakin University in Australia, Coventry University and the Open University in the UK, Newcastle and Murdoch universities in Australia, and more to be announced, who are all delivering full degrees on our platform. Primarily master's level degrees, although Newcastle are delivering our first undergraduate degree as well. What we also try to do for our partners is to use the fact that we are all working together to bring marketing benefits that can enable us to attract really massive audiences. And in our time, that has meant nearly 9 million learners, over 20 million enrollments to courses, of which, incidentally, around 1 million have come from India, despite us having spent no marketing money in India or anywhere else in the world to date. We're very proud of our demographics. We are a much more female audience base than most of the players in this market, we believe. We attract a wide range of people from those professional age groups, 26 to 55. And although we have a great strength in Europe, we have a very international spread of audiences. And we've been able to have real impact in that time. And here's just a few of the statistics. Over 800,000 people have joined mental health courses on FutureLearn. Well over 100,000 have joined courses about cancer. Over 70,000 courses about dementia. We've delivered over 30,000 free certificates from UK universities, sponsored by the UK government. We've had over 1 million learners on teaching courses. So this is just a snapshot of what we believe we're already doing and can do further. And at a more micro level, we know that the courses we create can have incredible impact in really hard to reach areas. So this is a course called Eliminating Trachoma from the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. And it's being used by Bangladeshi doctors in Rohingya refugee camps. And we get fantastic feedback from the program coordinator here and from other places that this course and other similar courses are being used. We know we can reach new parts of the world with very high quality learning that can deliver powerful impact, as well as reaching learners such as Lee, a disabled learner who wrote to us about his joy at how we have unlocked learning for him. So we know we're having an impact, but we know we're still only just scratching the surface of our ambition to transform access to education. And we know that some of what the MOOCs promised in those early days has still to be seen in terms of real bridging of that gap between supply and demand. And so how can we and others do more to move beyond the educated, the already educated, those living in metropolitan areas, to really reach out beyond those that we're currently delivering to? I guess one of the keys that we see is about collaboration, because we cannot do this on our own. And our belief is that collaboration in a whole range of areas is key to unlocking the potential of digital to really transform access. Now, we have had collaboration in our blood since day one. We started as a collaboration of UK universities, but quickly began to add universities from all over the world, including particular strength across Australia, across the US, and across Europe. We have, incidentally, only one partner so far in India, the Jindal Centre for Social Innovation and Enterprise, who are doing some extremely innovative things with us, and we're very proud to count them as a partner. But as I'll repeat at the end, we're still very interested in forming a wider range of Indian partnerships to try to tackle what is one of our biggest markets already. And our ambition is to bring the high quality institutions that we work with individually together to work with each other to try to create a wider range of affordable qualifications and content for people all over the world. And we were very proud to announce at the end of 2018 that Coventry University in the UK and Deakin University in Australia were collaborating to create a joint degree on the FutureLearn platform. So because they were already using the same approach to developing online degrees, they have decided to create a shared degree. And we think this ability to introduce content sharing and greater collaboration is one of the ways to really expand what we are doing. Another way is collaboration with government and other organizations. So we're very proud at FutureLearn of our partnership with the British Council, who have been probably the most powerful partner for FutureLearn over the last 6 years, driving significant awareness of FutureLearn all over the world and creating some of our most high quality courses. For example, preparation courses for the IELTS exam. And together, we have been funded by the British government to promote British education in developing countries. So we identify learners when they come from countries that are in our target, and we offer them the chance to gain a free certificate from a UK university. And we've had huge uptake of this. And why we love it is it subsidizes what can be an expensive offer into countries where most people cannot afford that. So it's the British government paying for that. It also helps to market and raise awareness of FutureLearn in those countries, something that to date we have simply not been able to do. And it enables us to reach people, therefore, who we would never otherwise have been able to deliver this kind of teaching to. So we're looking for more types of relationships like this if we're to really try to bridge those further gaps that we know exist. And in general, working in public education, we believe we have one of the best platforms in the world. Sometimes we think even the best platform in the world for delivering high quality education at real scale, hundreds of thousands of people, millions of people, anywhere in the world. And we're working with British government, European government, other British institutions in order to, for example, drive up coding skills across the UK. And we're looking for more types of collaboration like this internationally. So what's next for us, and what do we need to do next in order to come closer to that ambition to really transform access to education? So we are hopefully on the verge of quite significant new investment into FutureLearn. The Open University has been delighted with the progress we've made and is committed to trying to help us grow. And so I expect and hope to be announcing something on this in the next few months. That will fund significant new platform development. So our strength to date has come from the investment in our high quality platform. But we know that there is so much more we could do to, for example, reach more people in India. So we want to be able to provide further support for other languages than English. We want to improve our distribution in all parts of the world, particularly in hard to reach areas with potentially low bandwidth. And that means providing, for example, easier offline access to our courses. So more ability to download a high quality experience, for example. These are all things we'll be looking at. We also know that we've built one of the best platforms in the world for delivering short courses. And so far, it's delivering online degrees very powerfully. But we're also aiming to be the best platform in the world to study a degree online. And so there is much more investment we're going to be putting into new assessments and developing our social learning philosophy for smaller groups of learners. And we also are going to be developing our micro-credential offer to try to create a powerful proposition that sits between the short course and the full degree, but is something that is really powerful and valued by employers and universities and governments all around the world. And we're working with our partners to develop this. We'll also invest for the first time in marketing because we believe we have an amazing proposition that still most people in the world just don't know about. I suspect many people in the audience still have not used FutureLearn, and I would encourage you to do so if you haven't. So we would like to spread the word and raise awareness. And key way that we will do that is by developing further outside the UK. And that means we are further on the lookout for local partnerships. We cannot hope to bridge the gap or come close to bridging the gap in countries like India if we don't have a wider range of local partnerships. There is only so much we can do from London. And so we're looking for those relationships with universities or other academic institutions, with corporates and employers, and with government. And our funding may well, for the first time, also enable us to expand the FutureLearn office into other territories. And I would love to see, in the next few years, FutureLearn India set up with the right range of local partners. So that's the end of my presentation. I guess I'd just end with an exhortation to us all to think very big, because we believe that digital offers us all the opportunity to think big, and by doing so, to really tackle this hugely ambitious but hugely important mission. Thank you very much.
So
No
thank
problem.
you so much for being with us. And when you spoke about the story of FutureLearn, it really resonated with us because IMBX has a similar story arc, and all of us here are looking forward to the FutureLearn India office. Thank you so much for being with us. Are you open to questions?
I'm very open to questions. Yes, please go ahead.
So any of the audience members has any questions, we'll pass a mic.
Hi, that was a really informative presentation. Thank you so much for that. So my question is around underdeveloped or developing countries. What are the major challenges that you see reaching out to those audience at this point in time, and how are you trying to overcome in the next couple of years?
So I think I would say three things: accessibility, affordability, and credibility. And these are three things that we want to work on. So accessibility, we know that our platform, currently pretty much everything is in English language. And so you have to have a relatively high level of English proficiency to be able to take one of our courses. We think there is lots more we could do to support people for whom English is not their first language. Initially with wider range of subtitling, transcripts, etc., but one day through to full localization of the platform in other languages. We also know that it requires, in many cases, or for many of our courses, pretty good bandwidth in order to use FutureLearn. And so there is much more we can do to make FutureLearn a better offline experience as well as an online experience. So for example, we're thinking about the development of a mobile app that maybe enables the full download of courses in a very high quality experience. So there's much more we could do about accessibility. And if I talk about, the partnerships we need there as well, the right local partnerships to potentially provide on the ground physical locations where people could download these courses or people could study them. And so our partnerships with people like the British Council, but also new partnerships are things that would be key to improving accessibility. In terms of affordability, so we know, for example, that many of our degrees are priced at levels that are just out of the reach of most people in developing countries at the moment. We want to try to explore with our partners who set those prices ways that we can help them to drive down costs, help them to develop different offers for different parts of the world, but also try to find ways that governments or employers or charities can sponsor and subsidize people to do those courses. So we have to make our whole offer more affordable in developing countries. And then credibility. So we know that we bring some of the world's greatest university brands online and into these developing countries. But still, there will be huge amounts of, a huge lack of awareness that these things even exist. And then an obvious suspicion about whether a certificate or an online degree is actually valuable in gaining employment, which is the primary motivation for most of our learners. And so we need, again, a wider range of partnerships, particularly with employers, local employers, and government, in order to really demonstrate, promote, and market the credibility of these courses, micro-credentials, and degrees. So that's a huge amount to do, but that is why we're raising investment, and that is why we have the ambition we do. So that is what we'll be working on over this year and future years.
Hello.
Yeah. One question. There are so many universities already there in India. What is the need for the Indian students to have a foreign online certified courses? And how does FutureLearn differ from many more universities across the world which are offering the certified courses? Because in India, there is an abundance of universities, and affordability also is there for the Indians with the Indian teachers. So what is the need for them to subscribe to a foreign degree, either by employability or what is your differentiator?
I guess our differentiator, or the differentiator we try to have, is quality of the learning experience. So that is where all the investment to date we have made has gone. That's why we haven't invested in marketing, because we wanted to create the best learning platform in the world for short courses, micro-credentials, and degrees. And what we're trying to do is unlock the universities we work with to be able to offer their services all over the world. And if there is demand in individual markets, then we want them to be able to satisfy that demand. I also hope that what we could do is, by the provision of very high quality learning materials from these institutions, potentially drive down costs for institutions, universities all over the world, by giving them access to very high quality materials that they could teach in a blended ways locally. So our belief is that even though there are lots of offers out there, there is still plenty of room for the kind of offers we are providing. We think we're innovating in the ways in which qualifications are delivered, and we think we're bringing powerful new players to the market where we think there will be demand for those players.
Okay. my question, please. Yeah. There are a lot of MOOC providers. So how do you plan to differentiate yourself? First question. Second question is, while you administer the exams, how do you prevent impersonation?
Okay, so we differentiate. Oh, sorry.
Since you're giving online degrees, impersonation is quite important. So yeah, how do you plan to prevent impersonation?
Yeah. So in terms of differentiation, so we try to differentiate on quality. So the quality of the platform, the quality of the learning experience, the quality of the mobile experience, and in particular, our focus on social learning and that aspect of our platform. We're pretty confident we're world leaders in delivery of courses with that underlying pedagogy. We also have a different set of partners. So we have by far the largest range of British education establishments. We're one of the leading players in Australia. We attract different audiences to some of these other players in the market. So as I showed you, 60% of our audience is female. I suspect that for other platforms, it's at least the opposite in terms of male-female split. So these are all ways that we differentiate, but we also think that the challenge is a huge global challenge, and there is definitely room for multiple players in this market. But we'll continue to innovate to try to drive the whole market forward. And then in terms of impersonation, so the way that we deliver our degrees is very much in hand in hand with the universities and their own systems. So we provide, it is the universities at this stage who, we send them learners, but the application process goes through the university. It is the university that identifies their language proficiencies, their previous qualifications, that takes the payment. And then at various stages where increased levels of authentication are required, we hand over to the university systems to do that. So the moments where authentication is required, we're currently still leaning on more traditional systems. But these are definitely areas in which we want to innovate as the scale of people doing full degrees and really high stakes assessments grows on our platform. So it's an area we'll be investing in.
Yeah, I have. Nelson, thank you very much. I'm Dr. Nandish, professor from Indus Business Academy. I have always one question I think you can throw a light. See, if you look into the pass percentage on most MOOCs platforms, it's about 6 or 8 or 10%. Do you think if we are able to sensitize the faculty and professors to enable and they supplement this MOOCs-based courses as a faculty, having maybe contact sessions once in 15 days or something, do you think it will add to the knowledge of the faculty as well as to the learners so that the effectiveness and ability to impact will be much more larger? Your thoughts, please.
I totally agree with that statement. I think that development of that blended learning facility is essential to deepening the impact of MOOCs around the world. I think that will have a very powerful impact on the learner who will benefit from that level of additional support. And we definitely believe, and we're told consistently by faculty who have taught courses on FutureLearn, that it has improved their teaching in the classroom as well as given them new skills and understanding of online. We hear it all the time, even from faculty who are nervous and suspicious when they start. So we do think this will have a huge impact. And we have built a whole range of tools on the platform to facilitate that kind of blended learning, so that universities, individual professors can invite people onto their courses and can monitor their progress and therefore interact directly with them, as well as the larger cohort of people around the world. So yes, I think it's a very powerful extension of what we're doing.
Simon, knowledge-wise, in India, we are fairly good. But where the real gap is the practical and the application. So do we have the case and the simulated oriented approach in your teaching systems online? Because that is where I think our teaching community will really gain big. Are you really looking at that part of the customer space?
So I think at this stage, as FutureLearn, we can only do what we can do online, really. And then provide these tools to our partners, such as the ability to offer blended learning, for them to then bring online learning alongside physical, practical-based learning, for example. However, the additional step that we take over other online learning platforms is the introduction of this social learning element. And we really do get levels of social interaction that are far higher than any other platform you will have seen, and a quality of interaction that is much higher as well. And what that means is that people can be interacting with other students around the world, as well as with professionals in the sector in which they are learning, so that they can add to just the knowledge that they are taking in from the videos, etc., and actually apply it through conversation, through online conversation with both tutors and other learners. And we think that is a very powerful extension. Now, that doesn't deliver the full practical, hands-on additional experience that is required for many professions, but it is a bridge between simply that instructivist knowledge gain and the full hands-on experiential. And we think that it also develops a whole range of other softer skills, critical thinking, communication skills as well.
Yeah. I have a question. So all through this session and even all through the various sessions today, I have been listening to a lot of talks about MOOCs, and I see a strange paradox emerging. Just now, one of my colleagues here asked, what is the completion rate of MOOCs with you? But the paradox that I'm seeing is, like, these days, I've seen a lot of YouTube channels where people are learning coding, music, DIY, and various other things. And I don't see there are questions of these completion rates and others emerging there. And I see that there is a strange, what should I say? We are still thinking within the conventional frameworks of production of knowledge, and adding on to the credibility part. Universities need not be credible sources of information or knowledge. I mean, it may be a very revolutionary thing, but the crowd itself, like if you crowdsource the production of knowledge to just like Wikipedia, right? Then being in a management school, I might be required to use the word market, but the crowd itself could automatically see which is a credible source of knowledge and which is not. So it's strange to see that we are not able to think beyond the conventional frameworks, and all these problems perhaps we are trying to fit in because of the conventional framework. So what are your thoughts on this?
I mean, I agree with you. I think it's quite common. So I don't come from higher education. I was in media before this. I was at the BBC for nearly 15 years. And I was in charge of digital developments there, first for the radio and then the television parts. And you saw people whose mindset was in broadcast television or radio, really struggling to understand and adapt to how they needed to change for an on-demand IP internet-driven world. And they're still going through that change. And so many times you would see someone take what worked in one environment and try to just match it to the other, and it wouldn't work. But over the 20 years now since I started there, things have got better and better and better, and the market's become much more competitive because other players have come in, Netflix, YouTube, who don't have the same legacy of thinking that those incumbent players have. Now, in education, I agree with you that the focus on completion rates somehow misses part of the point, which is many people are coming in here. This is an online environment. They're coming in for a sharp burst of knowledge or learning experience and then going away, and they've been satisfied by that. And actually, there's only a relatively small percentage who are coming in with an intention of trying to complete a course and then progress to the next thing. In our case, incidentally, around 20% of people who start our courses will complete them. And we're very proud of that figure. We think that's a very strong figure in distance and online learning. So I think in terms of the wider challenges of the industry, the government, the institutions accepting this change, I think it is going to take time, but the change has started. It is inevitable. It is going to accelerate, and it will be pushed on by other new entrants to this market, like YouTube, as you said, where huge amounts of learning are now taking place.
Simon, before Deepika formally thanks you, there are three pioneers in online learning here, of course. One of them already spoke to you in the morning. Anand is here, Professor Anandalingam is here, and Professor Mangal Sundar. So I thought it might be great to hear your views in response to what Simon has spoken. And then, of course, shall I give the mic? Yes? Or okay. All three of you, we could start from anywhere, and then we'll conclude the session.
That was a great presentation. And this is Mangala Sundar. I'm from IIT Madras. I'm part of the older team of the National Program on Technology Enhanced Learning. And currently I'm into the process of creating skills academies and the skill programs for employable graduates and so on. That's the last 1 year. Since a lot of things that you said is something that I've been living with, I do not know except to say that I've lived the right life. That's the only thing. I mean, that's the most important part. The second is the digital revolution that you bring in. I do not see a reason for the universities to feel alarmed and close down or tell the students to go away and so on. But I think if they are smart enough, they become better and bigger universities in the longer run. And the university doors are now open outwards instead of inwards, since the physical campus has a limitation in the number of students that one can take. But the digital world has essentially opened up the university to become completely accessible to the rest of the world. And I think that's a much larger impact on the digitization and the massive open online program that you and many others and the NPTEL's massive open online program, all these things are essentially addressing one by one the requirements of individualized and personalized learning. So I think I agree with most of what you have said with respect to the role of FutureLearn and the goals. And in forming partnership, Manjula is sitting right next to me from British Council, and she has the same point of view. How can we build the bridges together instead of building our own bridges? I think this conference should bring that part much more closely and come up with a documentation. And since now I'm in the public, I would also like to invite you next time to IIT Madras when you plan to visit. Okay.
Thank you.
That was Nelson. That was a fantastic talk. It was really nice to hear you.
Thank you. An invitation accepted.
Okay, this is Anandalingam, and I was I guess your neighbor for a few years. I was the dean of the business school at Imperial College, and we actually launched online MBA program about 4-5 years ago, and I think the biggest challenge for us was to make sure that we understood one of the points that you made earlier, which was that an online student is very different from a student in class. And the way we needed to interact with those students was very different. I mean, you really needed to make sure that the online student was engaged, was interested, was stimulated, and all in an environment where they were learning, sometimes waiting for a plane, or the kitchen at the kitchen table, or with children running around, and that. So I would say that I mean, a lot of what you said resonated with me. I mean, our biggest challenge, I would say, was that to get the commitment of the faculty to actually generate this kind of new learning paradigm online, because it was not simply them taking course content and trying to put it online. They had to spend a lot of time on the studio, delivering like 15-minute chunks of material, really trying to train them on how to understand an online student, what kind of exercises that they were willing to do and they were not willing to do, and how to integrate multimedia content into their lectures and so on and so forth. So, so it took us a significant amount of investment, I should say. You have not spoken about that, but long before we even had one student come into the program, we had to spend the order of about £2 million to actually get the thing going. But I must say the results have been fairly spectacular. I mean, we now have well-qualified students in the online MBA program. Each year I think Imperial College now has 2 or 3 intakes, and an annual intake of about close to 150 students doing an online MBA program. And the beauty is that they are distributed globally. They are from all over the world, and yet they seem to have very much of a cohort-based, networked experience while they're doing the degree. I should add that when I was at the Smith School, I was also at the Smith School at the University of Maryland. When I was a dean there, we launched an online program as well. It was done differently. It was a lot more synchronous as opposed to asynchronous. But again, today that MBA program has more students than any of the other MBA programs at the Smith School. So I think the future is with online education. But I think the biggest challenge, and you didn't speak a lot about the challenges, because I guess you are really talking about the the positive side, but the biggest challenge is really to get faculty to make the commitment to not only do the initial offering, but on a regular basis, update their offerings, take into account new things that are going on. I mean, in a business school, things seem to change on a regular basis, every few months. Whether it's a stock market or whether it's yet another new technology coming at you, and so on. So the commitment of the faculty was the biggest challenge, I would say. So with that, let me say I really enjoyed your presentation. I wish I'd come and spoken to you when I was your neighbor, but perhaps we'll have an occasion to meet in the future.
Be great.
I did speak earlier this morning, so I'll be really brief. But great to hear you speak, Simon. As always, we need to have our next beer together when we meet next in physically in some city, not virtually as we did today. It's hard to have virtual beers. That's one thing that online education can never match campus residential education. you cannot have beers or other toxins online. I just make one very quick point, which is there are a lot of innovators and pioneers and professors doing online education. I'd just like to leave one challenge out there. There is a tendency, and I think all the MOOC providers and universities have run afoul of that, which is to take the same thing that they've done on campus and try to replicate it online. And the online degrees are probably the single biggest culprit there, where many of these online degrees cost the same, for example, or more than campus degrees. Many of these online, in fact, every single online degree that I know of, whether it's on edX or FutureLearn, has an admissions process. But these are expensive, they have admissions, and frankly, online learning and digitization can eliminate these boundaries. We should be eliminating admissions boundaries. It is, frankly, I think it is insane for an online degree to cost the same as a campus degree. The economics are completely different. And so, I really challenge everybody to really think disruptively and not to try to replicate digitally what we've been doing on campus and, just fall into the same ruts that, we've been in before.
Can I add something? Little debate here. So there is this is true of all information goods. There's a huge fixed cost. You can't avoid the huge fixed cost, actually. The variable cost is very, very small. So I agree with you that the cost comes down very rapidly once you start doing something. But to start doing something the right way, I can't see how you avoid a fixed cost, actually.
I wanted to speak really briefly, but I have to debate my friend Anand, who spells his name wrong. It should end with a T, but I know, giving you a hard time. I don't believe that the fixed costs force you to have very expensive degrees. Georgia Tech, for example, on edX has launched a master's degree in cybersecurity, a master's in analytics. UT Austin has launched a master's in computer science. Each of them has a campus degree that costs $40,000 to $45,000 and has admissions processes. But on edX, each of these degrees cost just $10,000. I'm not an economist. I'm just trying to help people. I'm just a simple-minded person.
On that note, I would like to thank Simon for being with us through this evening. All of us in the education space will keep the 3 points that you noted: accessibility, affordability, and credibility. On that note, thank you for being with us and making FOL 2019's evening session really interesting and engaging. Thank you, Simon.
Thank you very much. It was a great pleasure.